So on November 6th, I sent out the email for the registration for this retreat, announcing the retreat, inviting you to register, and giving you a message from Cheri Maples, who said, I will do my very best to be at the Thaypassana retreat. So we've got everybody under the big top today, and we're really glad you're here, Cheri.
Well, thank you. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be here with my dear ones. I've seen some of you. I've seen some of you quite a bit, and some of you I haven't seen since the last retreat. But one thing I have felt over these last months that has really kept me going is love. And I don't think there's anything more important in the universe than love. And I had an accident, but in some ways I am the most fortunate and grateful person around anywhere because of the love I have received. It's just been so incredible, and that love has come from many of you in this room in many different forms, and I want to thank each of you for that. I think that's one thing that will allow me to continue as a teacher, which I plan on doing. So I hope you'll have me again. With this accident that I've had, of course, I have learned more about impermanence on a deeper level. And the thing that has really kept me going and allowed me to be present on a daily basis is, well, there are two things. Impermanence, knowing how it works in the universe and how important it is to the practice. And interdependence, my interdependence and interbeing with all of you and everybody in the whole world. But the thing that has personally kept me going is the practice. It's not just the love that I've received from so many, but the practice itself. And it's interesting because once this happened to me, and once I got through the first 4 or 5 weeks when I was basically non-communicative, which I really don't remember much about, but when I started to wake up, and the first week I didn't really have my mind, and I think people were wondering if I would have it. And as time went on, I was fortunate enough to have my mind and be able to watch its many machinations throughout the day. And what is so interesting to me is the power of acceptance. There's not one time that I have asked, why did this happen to me? Because in so many talks I've talked about, well, why not me? Why not me? And so that has been very, very important to me, just learning how to accept my present state. The other thing that, well, another thing that has been important to me, and a new skill in some ways, certainly people have been generous with me throughout my life, but a very new skill with all of this came learning how to receive, because I really had to. And it was the generosity of people, their visits, that really kept me going. And I've lived now in 4 different places. And I have to tell you that living in these hospitals and skilled nursing facilities and select specialty for my lung, which I had done a lot of damage to early on, is very interesting, because to me it's like living in a co-op with the staff, especially. And you really have to learn how to relate to each of the staff, which comes with time. But as a Dharma teacher, over the years I have certainly experienced the praise and blame roller coaster, but much of it has been praise and people saying very wonderful and very nice things to me. And this whole experience has been about vulnerability and learning about vulnerability and allowing myself to turn toward my vulnerability. And there's been a real sense of humility that's come with that. And if you remember, one of Thay's sayings was always no superiority, no inferiority, and no equality complexes. In other words, as we practice and make our way toward freedom, we don't compare ourselves to each other. And that is really wonderful. In my room, one of the things I have is a calligraphy from Thay that says, "I have arrived, I am home." And of course it reminds me every day, and especially, I don't have a home right now, quote unquote, everything is in storage. So it reminds me every day, no matter where I am and in which facility I am in, that I am home. I am home in the here and now. And staying in the present moment has been so important to me, because if I jump toward the future, or if I get lost in the past, there's nothing helpful about that. And so one of the wonderful things for me has been learning how to stay present and being present. I've had so many visitors. When I was first hurt, I had them from 9 in the morning till 9 at night. And early on, people even stayed overnight with me, which was so generous. And the reason for that is sometimes I would turn on the call light or call button and nobody would come for a really long time. And especially early on, I was having trouble breathing. And it's really ironic because we pay so much attention to our breath in the practice. And I was having trouble breathing. So I really needed whoever was with me to go get somebody to help. Otherwise, I'd be just gasping for breath. So I used to have a trachea in where they could come and suction out the secretions. And if nobody came, it was not good. So my visitors were extremely important. And one of the things I found is because I enjoyed them so much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I enjoyed my visitors so much, it was really easy for me, maybe easier than it's ever been, to stay present with them, to really be with another person. And that was another thing that came out of this accident that has to do with applying the practice on a daily basis. And again, love. It was just so easy for me to feel tremendous love for whoever was in front of me at the time. And thank the Buddha, sometimes that was my dog. The other thing that the practice has really pushed me to do is to let go. I was a person who used my body a lot it was a source of joy for me, to bike, to sail, to play pickleball, to do all those things that I could still do with my body. So there's been some grief around that. And it's been very important for me to turn toward it rather than push it away as part of the practice. But letting go has been so important as a means of adjusting to this. The other thing this one's a little hard to describe, but things would happen for me where I would see things clearly that I hadn't seen before. Because I've been through lots of suffering in my life, as we all have. But in this particular case, everything was kind of stripped down to zero in this very interesting way. And one day I was grateful enough to wake up and realize that in some places there was suffering, and in other places there was not. And that to a certain extent, what I saw on this particular day that was so clear to me is that I actually could choose to live here, where there was a lot of suffering, or here, where there was suffering, but I had the tools to deal with it, and there was joy, too. And being in this condition didn't change that at all. And I don't know what happened and what gave me that particular ability to see so clearly on that day. And sometimes there is no choice about suffering because it comes to us in so many forms. And that's when we have to choose. Do I turn toward it and accept it, or do I rail against it? And for me, that decision was never clearer in my life than it was on that particular day. It was really, really a gift. Now, that hasn't happened to me since that particular day, but it's just like the practice. Once you get some benefits from it, even when it gets hard, you maintain what you've put into that practice bucket, and you get glimpses. You get glimpses of the fact that we are all one with the universe. Even when we don't feel it, even when we're suffering, most of us have had some glimpse of that connection. And it is extremely important. You know, the other thing that is important, and, or I should say, another thing, the challenges, of course, are grief, understanding, though, that regardless of my physical condition, thank goodness, I still have the ability to be happy. I still have the ability to be happy, to love, and to connect with others, which is so important. The other thing that's been important to me is when you're in this kind of situation, other people have a way of sometimes taking on your experience. And it's been really important to me that people stay in their own experience, perhaps in relation to me, but they stay in their own experience rather than jumping into mine, because that is the only thing that will lead to freedom, which of course is one of the deep and wonderful reasons that we practice. The other thing, or another thing, that I remember is for our newsletter in Snowflower Sangha, we were asked one day to submit our favorite saying from Thai. And this was before my accident. And a few words about why it was important to us. And the saying that I submitted is, this is it. This is it. Whatever is going on in the present moment is it. And the more we can stay there, the better our chances are for healing. Because that's what we're all doing together, is we're healing and walking toward freedom. another thing that's been very interesting to me as I watch it is, to me, the practice has been about, one of the things the practice has been about that has been very, very important to me is dissolving the ego. And I have to tell you that with the vulnerability that comes from this experience, a lot of it is how you're interacting with the medical system. And lots of times people don't want to listen to the patient. And I've had that experience and have to decide how to deal with it when it happens. And it's true that this is it. A lot of vulnerability associated with that. And in terms of the things other people have to do for me, there's been no choice but to let the ego dissolve and experience the humility that comes with it. So those are a few things that have been with me since my accident, and I am quite confident there will be many, many more. So, again, I want to thank all of you, and I especially want to thank, there are many people in this room who have been very good to me. Maureen stepped up like I couldn't have possibly imagined or experienced. So on this wonderful, wonderful day, a deep bow of gratitude to you. And sitting next to her is also somebody who has really stepped up and is still there with me so often, including today. Deep bow of gratitude to you, Mary Bennett. I couldn't possibly mention all the people that have been there for me, but it has been such a wellspring of love. And in that regard, I'm the luckiest person on the face of the earth. And I thank Buddha for that. I am so grateful my practice continues to get stronger in the face of this. And I am so grateful that I could be here today with all of you. This is certainly my first public experience, and it's the second time that I've been on an outing. The first time was to my good friends Jackie and Marlene with the dogs and other good friends joining me, and oh my, you can't imagine how wonderful it is to be out of my room. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you all so much. And I think with that I'll end.
Do you want to sit for a couple minutes and do Q&R?
Okay, I think we'll just sit together for a couple of minutes.